Hi guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be making gelatin globes. This is not part of the Christmas cake series, but initially, if you guys can remember, we were going to make just the gelatin snow globes with the Christmas trees inside. So we've done the Christmas trees. So for those of you who just wanted to make the snow globes, I'm quickly going to show you how to make those snow globes, or the actual globes. I mean, whatever you put on the cupcake or your decorations, the sky's the limit, but the real technical part is making the gelatin globe. So yes, and then from tomorrow we'll go on with the different elements of the Christmas cake. Okay, so what I've got a nice sturdy dummy to stick my project into. I've got 3 nice thick bamboo skewers. I've got 3 because I'm going to make 3 globes. I've got a metal bowl. This is one that's empty. I've got one with some cold water inside, and then I've got a large bowl with hot water inside. So I'm just going to use that to melt my gelatin. Okay, the gelatin that I prefer using for the snow globes is the sheet gelatin, just because it's clearer and stronger in my experience. But your powder gelatin will also work at a ratio, if I remember correctly, of 2 gelatin to 5 water. So if you want to do gelatin projects where you need your gelatin to dry hard, and you're working with powder gelatin, that's normally the ratio is 2 gelatin to 5 water. But with the sheets, it's easy enough. You're just going to put them into nice cold water and give them at least 10 minutes to properly soak in the water. Okay, so I'm going to leave that in there for 10 minutes to soak up water, and then I'll be ready to melt it. Okay, so you can see my gelatin is completely soft. You might want to, while you're soaking it, about 5 minutes in, actually take the pieces and separate them, especially if you've got a lot of leaves there, because as they soak up moisture, they can sort of get stuck together and then not soak up as well as they otherwise might. Okay, so now all you need to do is to squeeze out as much of the excess moisture as you can. And then I'm just going to put this in the hot water bowl. So while that's melting, we can prepare our balloons. I think rather let's just make 2. I think 3 is unnecessary. I'm sure it'll come out well. So I've got a little bit of a different trick that I use when making these. So I don't know, those of you that might have tried it before, to make these balloons, or these actually any of the gelatin bubbles, is that you get that your balloon sort of flops over on the side. It's difficult to dip, and then if it's hanging to the side, you get sort of a drip hanging there. So that really frustrates me. So what I do is I'm just taking a piece of thin cardboard and bending it in and folding a cone. Okay, so I'm going to try to get a very thin tip there. So you can see I've got some electric tape here. I'm using electric tape because it actually sticks the balloon very well to my sticks. But for now I'm just going to use it to complete my cone there. And then I want to cut it smaller. You want to make sure that your circle at the top of the cone is smaller than the diameter of your cupcake, because you are going to trim a bit off of your dome at the end, because it does get a bit unneat on the edge. So all it needs to be is big enough to stabilize your balloon, and these balloons are going to be quite small. So I think that is fine. Make sure you don't have sharp edges on the edge there. If you're nervous about that, you can quickly take a piece of your tape, sort of stick it around the edge, half on, half off. And fold that in. Actually made a bit of a mess of that one on this side, but no matter, it will do its job. So I'm going to make a second one. In case you were wondering, electric tape is non-toxic unless it burns, in which case it gives off toxic fumes. Right, so just to make sure it doesn't actually puncture my balloon. Okay, so got my balloons over here. These are just water balloons. I can advise you to always use good quality balloons when you're going to make gelatin bubbles. I'm going to do one water balloon, and then I've got just one normal balloon to see if I can get a bit of a bigger one. So I'm just going to blow this up. Okay, so you can see these are lovely. They're actually really nice and round. Unfortunately, I can't find them in clear. The next best thing for me is purple, because I find that balloons do give off the slightest bit of color sometimes, and since gelatin is ever so slightly yellowish, my reasoning is just that the purple will, the tiny amount that is there, will actually counteract the yellow. Okay, and then let's see if we can make a big one. The thing with gelatin globes is the bigger you get, the harder it really gets, and the more uneven the shape becomes, because you've got such a big area to cover, and as the gelatin dries, it sort of warps and distorts a bit. So the bigger it is, the more warping and distortion you're going to get. If you find your balloon sort of at the size you want, it is not a nice round shape, you can always sort of just force the air to the front of the balloon and force the balloon to go nice and round. I'm just going to knot that. I wouldn't go larger than this. I think this already will be quite a challenge to get right. Okay, so next I'm going to get some electric tape ready. Right, so I'm going to put my stick inside the bottom hole of the balloon here. And now, one thing you don't want is for your electric tape to actually touch the balloon, because it sticks so well to this plastic that when you pull it off, it's going to pop your balloon. So just make sure you get a good piece of the bottom part of the balloon and get it on there very well so that it can't pull off. Let's do the other one. I hope this big one works out. Really, the bigger you go, the more you are inviting trouble. So after I've done this, let's put our cones on. So I'm going to stick my cone through here. So you can imagine this is really a schlep to dip this, because the balloon doesn't really want to go under the gelatin and it goes all over the place. So if you pull this up and you pull it tight, you've got a much more stable balloon to work with up here. So I'm taking another piece of electric tape and taping down my cone. Make sure it's pulled up nice and tight against the balloon there, so that it causes it to have some tension and becomes nice and stable. So this way you can easily dunk it under the gelatin, and to dry you can stack it straight up without it tipping to the side and forming uneven parts. Okay, let's do the smaller one. Get my tape ready first. Alright. So this is more the size you'll use on a cupcake. And pull it up a bit so that this is nice and sturdy. And then make sure you catch the paper a little bit, go onto the stick, and then you can even go back onto the, or not the what's it, cardboard. Just thin cardboard is fine. Paper is just too thin to offer a good support. Okay, so you can see this will work very well. So what I'm going to do with both of them for lubrication is I'm going to spray the balloon thoroughly with spray and cook. Make sure you don't miss a spot. Okay, so after I've done that, I'm going to thoroughly remove the spray and cook. So this way I know that I've got an incredibly thin coating of spray and cook all over the balloon. So just get it all off as good as you can. See, if you don't get it off well enough, your gelatin won't stick to the balloon at all. It will pull away and leave spots. So really just get it all off. Right, I'm happy with that. Do the other one. Okay, so I've got both my balloons done so that my gelatin won't stick to it, and won't pull away from the balloon either. It should give a good coating. So let's check our gelatin. Actually, it's not bad. Okay, so before I get some more warm water, I'm going to do my first dip. It's very important that when you dip your balloons, that your gelatin is room temperature, alright? Even body temperature is fine. If you find that your gelatin starts congealing at room temperature, you can stop just short of room temperature and that would be fine. Okay, so the way I'm going to dip it is I'm tipping my gelatin bowl to the side, and so that my gelatin is, you can see I'm using a round bowl. It really makes this a lot easier. So I'm just tipping it to the side, and starting with my balloon pointing downwards, I'm going to turn it and angle it as I turn it until I come to the edge at the bottom here. Try and get it all the way to the edge, and then let my gelatin run off onto my cone a bit here. Come here. And I'm going to turn it and let it run off until it stops. So this way there's no little streaks or droplets setting on my balloon. Right, if you find you've got the odd spot where it looks like it might be pulling away from the balloon a little bit, I wouldn't worry about that too much. Generally with your second dip, that will get covered. So just keep going until it stopped running. You can see it, like I said, I'm holding it at an angle so that it just comes, the runoff comes to just over this edge and doesn't stay on the balloon. Okay. This I think can dip again before we warm it up a bit. So as soon as it sort of starts pulling strings and becomes snotty a little bit, you know you need to warm it back up a bit. Okay, let's try the big one. They are so tricky. It also gets so heavy. Alright. Trying to get my runoff all the way down. But all in all, that was a pretty good tip. Come here. Come all the way. And you. Just keep turning, otherwise you're going to have a thick side where you don't want it. So that's quite typical of the bigger balloons. You can see there is a bit of a bigger blob there. Also, it doesn't help that my gelatin was a little bit on the cold side. But you will find the bigger balloons sort of giving you more hassle. Okay, so you can see that's congealed nicely everywhere. And I'm gonna refill my hot water and warm my gelatin back up, and then we should be able to dip a second time. I think actually before I do that, I'm just going to soak my second packet of gelatin. So before you dip your balloons again, you do want to make sure that it's not sticky anymore. So you just want to give it a moment before dips for the gelatin just to set a bit. Don't wait for it to dry. It actually comes out very unneat if you do that. Alright, so let's give it a second dip, starting facing downward and turning it and tilting the bowl and the balloon until you get to the edge of the bowl and the balloon, and then turn it and let it run off onto the edge. Here we go. Come on. Of your cone. Just help that piece along a bit. So you can see it handles really good with the cone on. Okay. So everything has stopped running. Let's do the big eye. So these big eyes can get quite heavy. I could have actually, might not have been a bad idea to start with a bigger diameter on my cone there, because it might even still tip when it gets too heavy. It's very cumbersome. Okay, try and get to my edge there. Oops, a daisy. I'm just going to help it up. Okay, so I've actually replaced the cone on my big balloon. I've forgotten how heavy they get when the gelatin starts coming on. So I'm going to try again to give it a second dip. So it appears to be handling the weight much better than the previous round. Come. Just trying to help it over that. You can only do this when it's still very runny. So I'll help it to run down on the edges there. But it really becomes difficult to control the gelatin on the big ones. Because also as it runs down, it actually starts cooling down before it gets to the bottom. And that's where you get these ridges. This technique is really most effective on little balloons. Warm that up a bit again. So I'm actually turning it upside down as well in all directions, just so I don't get it accumulating somewhere, getting heavier at one point or another. Okay, so I'm going to give this one a quick third dip. Let's hope all goes well. All the way to the bottom here and let it run off. Come on. Can I stop running? Yes. Okay. I'm not going to give this big eye a third dip. I'm going to put these in front of a fan until they dry, and then we can take them off. Okay, so I've left my globes to dry out overnight. You can always put them in front of a fan as well to speed it up. I've got a lot of humidity here, so I can see on my thickest areas that are still, especially there, still a bit soft. That's not ideal. I'm going to continue with the tutorial because we are pressed for time, but the best is just to check with your nail on the thickest bits, and if it's still a bit soft, the best idea is to leave it until it goes completely hard. What can happen is if you have a bit of softness on the edge here, it can distort a bit because it's now going to dry out without support. So that might happen a little bit here, but like I said, we don't have that much time. So let's just rather get this guy done. Alright, now we hope for the best, because I have not used these particular balloons either before. And some give off more color than other ones I've noticed. So let's just try. So I'm going to cut all along my edge here using my little nail scissors. They just do less damage than the big ones, I find. So over there you can see it's still a bit soft now. Alright, that's not bad. You can see there, I don't know if you can see where you put it in front of something white, where the balloon sort of is most concentrated. It does leave a little bit of color, but I'm not finished with this. I'm going to take a piece of paper towel, well, two actually. Alright, and then we want to clean it out, because also there's a bit of a murkiness that always stays behind. So obviously you can't clean this out with water, but we're going to clean it out with a bit of oil. So I'm going to take my spray and I'm holding it with a paper towel so I don't make fingerprints all over the thing. And I'm just going to spray a bit of spray and cook in there, and then I'm going to start polishing it on the inside. You'll see the color comes off on my paper towel. You see. I still have a bit of a purple shine to it. Okay, so I think that's about as clear as we're going to get it. Let's try the bigger one. There we go. The balloon has dented it a little bit. But it didn't really do damage. Alright, so if you want to get this last little bit off, don't force it. You can leave it to go off, get off by itself. But you know me, I'm impatient. Still, I'm only applying a little bit of pressure and helping it along. So I must be careful with this guy because it's a lot thinner than the other one. Right, so let's see if we can get that polished up nicely. It should come out a bit clearer because the balloon was clear, not colored, and also because it's thinner. but will have to be more careful working with it. Okay, so if you want to get them to a perfect shine, then you can even take cotton, because it's so soft, it will get rid of the last little bit of spray and cook oiliness that you've got in there. I know this is a bit of effort, but you don't have to take it this far. You know, I always like to see how perfect one can get a thing. Alright, I think that's crystal clear almost. Let's give this guy a bit of a polish. And there they are.